recommendation is adopt Resolution 2019-08, approving an employment agreement for the police chief. City Manager?
Okay, this item is recommended action is to adopt Resolution 2019-08, approving the employment agreement for the police chief. Following a nationwide recruitment, Matthew Hamner was selected to serve as the police chief for the City of Banning. Pursuant to Banning Municipal Code, the city manager is authorized to execute an employment contract in contemplation of employment by the city, subject to requirements that are established there. Basically, that it's a department head, that the contract is for a classification of employee that isn't included with any recognized employee group, a bargaining unit. The maximum compensation and benefits of that contract are subject to approval of the council prior to the contract taking effect. And the contract is subject to limitations that are set forth in California Government Code, Section 53260. The proposed agreement is attached. It's attachment 2. Mr. Hamner has signed the agreement, so he has agreed to the terms. And there is a section in the agenda bill that should be read by Mayor Welch prior to any action by the council. Basically outlines the key elements of the agreement. Fiscal impact. The city will incur an increase in annual salary expense of approximately $14,000 and a one-time reimbursement for moving and relocation expenses of up to $18,000. Any questions?
Yes, let me read this, then we'll open it up. Consistent with Section 54953-C-3 of the Government Code and Section 2.5 of the City Council's Rules of Procedure, the mayor, mayor pro tem, or other presiding officer shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for a final action on the salaries, salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive as defined in Section 3511.1D of the Government Code during the open regular meeting in which the final action is to be taken in prior to the motion to approve. The city manager is a local agency executive as defined in Section 3511.1D of the Government Code, and the oral report is required prior to approval of the attached agreement as addressed in the staff recommendation section of this report. This is a summary of the commitment. Employee will receive an annual salary of $190,857.99 during his term as police chief. If the city terminates the agreement without cause, Mr. Hamner is entitled to 6 months' salary plus insurance coverage for himself and his dependents, subject to limitation by Government Code Section 53260. In addition to the stated benefits offered, Mr. Hamner is entitled to an advance of 80 hours of vacation and sick leave upon reporting to work. That is the in summary of it. I will open it up to the council for comments first. Don?
I'm not ready yet. Go ahead and go past me.
David?
I think that we've had a lot of discussion back and forth on this issue, and I was elected in my district by the voters to bring one of the chief things that they wanted was safety, their safety in this town. And it's my understanding that our police department has been running on interim chiefs and chiefs about to retire, and we haven't had a cohesive, strong leadership in our police department in quite some time. And now is the time for, I feel this is a bold move for the council to do this, because it is, there's nothing hidden here. This is over the allotted budget. But in the discussions that we've had and in contemplating this issue, I feel it's extremely important that we act on this as an investment in our town, our safety, our children's safety, our police officers' safety, and the betterment of this community and its reputation. I feel this is absolutely a vital thing, and I feel that I've been asked by the voters to do something along these lines. And that's why I feel very strongly that we, as a council, should unanimously approve this contract.
Okay. Danielle?
I feel the same way. I know this is a lot of money to be spent on a police officer, chief of police, but we have been in disarray over in that department for a very long time. I think to bring some order in and have one of the best coming in and be a good leader, that's exactly what we need. We just approved not too long ago an increase in salaries so we can retain and bring in more police officers. So why wouldn't we want the best for our chief of police who can actually implement and bring programs and train and have good leadership and get everything back to order? I think that is essential, and we definitely need this.
Colleen?
I agree with Danielle and Dave, and the reason why I say that, because in this city, we have had murders that has not been solved. We need someone that can come in, get along with everyone, help the police department. We need safety here. So as far as money, why are you talking about money? You have some employees that's making just as much or more. So I feel this is cool to bring him in. He knows how to manage the police department. So bring him in, and that's how I feel about that.
Once again, it seems as though the council's talking about an individual and not talking about a contract. I'm going to talk and discuss about a contract. The contract that we have before us is for $190,857.99. In addition to that, which is actually, let me back up, is $14,000 over and above the advertised rate when we advertised for the chief. The top step was $177,000. And so it actually, the contract, or this individual's requested $190,000, which puts it approximately $14,000 above what our top step was. In addition to that, the individual is asking for 80 hours of advanced and banked sick time and 80 hours of advanced and banked vacation time. Now we take a look at what is banking, and banking becomes a debt to the city, of which the city has got to cover. So this chief is going to be making approximately $155 an hour at a fully burdened rate. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set aside, in addition to the $14,000, that the city manager said is going to cost us annually. Now we're going to add $24,800 on to the $14,000. In addition to that, we're going to pay him $18,000 to move, $15,000 for the move, and $3,000 for 2 reconnaissance to come down and check out housing. In addition to that, he's requesting that he receive an annual raise based on the CPI, and the national CPI has been running anywhere from 3 to 3.5%. So on this 3-year contract, we're looking at approximately $7,000 per year, and at the life of the contract, another $21,000. So when the city manager's sitting there saying, oh, this is only going to cost us the one-time expense of $14,000 or $14,000 annually, and the one-time expense of $18,000, overall, we're looking at roughly a $77,800 expense. Now, the other thing that's deceiving on this is that the salary is $190,857. In addition to that, the employee will receive $20,000 for cafeteria allowance. That's for his medical insurance, and approximately another $10,000 in miscellaneous benefits. So the actual salary of this individual is going to be $220,857. $220,857 is what that salary will be. Now, on that, in addition, I want to bring up that Resolution 2017-101 limits our annual CPI to 1%. At least that's what all other directors are making, is a 1% CPI. But all of a sudden this one says, and I must read this to you, salary adjustment, employees' base salary and benefit package have been established by the agreement. Annual adjustments in the base salary will be equal to 100% of the June through June CPI for the term of this agreement will be effective on August 1st each year. So like I said, each year the individual will receive approximately a $7,000 a year pay increase. That's on one of them. Secondly, we got, as the budget permits, this is in section 6.1, as budget permits, the city hereby agrees to budget an amount to be determined and by the exercise of its sole discretion to pay the cost, travel, and subsistence expense of employee for professional and/or official travel, meetings, occasions adequate to continue professional development, etc., which are generally like the International Chief of Police Association, California Police Association, in attendance of at least 2 annual conferences. I don't have a problem with this, but what I'd like to know is where in the budget do we find that? So when the budget comes out, when we start working on that, I want to know where in the budget do we budget this amount of money for him to go on these conferences. The other part of the contract that I'm not really all excited about is that the employee shall be entitled to 96 hours of sick leave annually. 96 hours sick leave annually with the right to cash in a maximum of 96 hours annually. So if he doesn't use any, then he can cash it in. So now he gets a $13,000 bonus on top of the $220,000. So keep adding it up. That's 290 or 220 plus 13 now, we're going to cash it in. Vacation leave, employees shall be entitled to 160 hours of vacation leave annually with the right to cash in a combined maximum of 80 hours vacation leave annually. So that's another $11,000 that he can cash in. Executive leave. Employees shall be entitled to 98 hours of annual accrual with the maximum accrual cap of 200 hours. Leave will be earned at the rate of 3.77 hours per day or per pay period a maximum of 98 hours of executive leave may be cashed out annually. So that's another $13.5 thousand that he could, $13,500 to cash in. Then the $20,000 for the cafeteria. This one I thought we discussed, and it was going to be taken out of the contract. As city manager, I thought we were going to take out the annual CPI. I thought that was coming out. And then on the automobile, which is section 6.5, employees' duties require that the chief of police shall have the exclusive and, quote, unrestricted use at all times during employment of a city vehicle for municipal purposes, okay? City shall provide all attendant operating and maintenance expenses and insurance. So we added the municipal purposes on there, okay. Next is we get education pay. Now the city agrees to pay employee the sum of $275 per month for a master's degree and $450 a month for a California Peace Officer Standards Training Management Certificate. He also gets $110 a month extra for uniform allowance. He gets $150 a month for utility allowance if he lives in the city. Here's the one part that I really don't care for the housing relocation. Housing relocation expense reimbursement. City will reimburse employee for the actual and reasonable cost not to exceed $15,000. Travel expenses incurred following the full execution of this agreement to visit city for employee or prepare. Anyway, let me see. I'm going to go down here. Moving employee to his immediate family and personal property from Bainbridge Island, Washington, to a location within 25 miles from the corporate limits of the city of Banning. Now, I don't mind spending the relocation allowance, but I mean, if we're going to pay for somebody to move, why wouldn't they move to the city? For me to pay somebody to move to Hemet or pay somebody to move to Palm Springs, you know, why aren't we paying them to move to the city? He wants to go to Palm Springs, then pay your own way. Then we got the $3,000 for him to come and go on 2 separate trips for him and his wife to come and look at the city and look for a place to live. Now, we didn't do that for the city manager. I can guarantee you we didn't do that to the city manager. That was, you know, and that was up to the council. This is up to the city manager for this. But by the time this thing is all said and done, the total buyouts per year, you know, to cash in his vacation time, sick time, executive leave time, that's $37,500. And you add that on to the $220,000 in salary and benefits there, now we're up to $267,500. Now, I want to compare something here. I gathered some statistics from Data USA. Anybody can gather it. It's datausa.io if you want to look. Bainbridge Island, the population is 23,840. Population of Banning is 30,600. Bainbridge has 87% white. Banning has 39.7% white. Bainbridge has 4.26% Hispanic. Banning has 43.5% Hispanic. Bainbridge has 0.98% blacks. Banning has 7.97% blacks. Bainbridge has 5.2% speak non-English. Banning has 31.9% speak non-English. The median household income in Bainbridge is $103,000. Median household income in Banning is $40,000. Median property value in Bainbridge is $570,000. Median property value in Banning is $177,000. Poverty rate in Bainbridge is 5.58%. Poverty rate in Banning is 24%. Now, I bring this information up to show the differences in the two cities. One has to wonder how a city that could afford to pay their chief more money elected not to, and how a city that can't afford to pay a chief more is willing to do so. Now, since the council gave up their right to have concurrence, we shouldn't even be discussing anything about the chief. Leadership, what he's going to do, programs, none of that needs to be coming. And once again, because we have a fiduciary responsibility. And that refers to the obligation that one party has in relationship with another one to act entirely on the other party's behalf and best interests, which means we are acting on the behalf of the public or the taxpayer. I don't think with our financial director, Rochelle Clayton, who at the last Budget and Finance Committee sat there and said the city is spending more money than we're taking in. That's a fact. We're spending more money than we're taking in, and now we want to pay more money out than what we've ever paid out for a police chief in the past. Leonard Purvis was here. He made $160,000. I can tell you that when Diaz was here, Hamner's going to be making about $60,000 more than what Diaz did, and $70,000 more than the interim chief Fisher did. So we're going way overboard. Now, I don't care who the person is that's coming here or how good they are. I mean, we could be getting Charlie Beck from LAPD, who would say, well, I want this much money. But no deal's a good deal if you can't afford it. And on a city that's running a $2 million a year deficit, you tell me where we're getting the money to all of a sudden pay nearly $300,000, and I didn't even give you the fully burdened amount. The fully burdened amount of what this employee is going to cost us. You know, where are we getting the money for that? I mean, we're going to be pulling it from the electric because the electric's the only one that's got any money. You know, Tom Miller, give us some money so we can pay the chief. You know, we're looking at a contract that is ridiculous. This is a small town that's poverty-ridden with a median income of $40,000, you know, family income, versus where he's coming from of $105,000 a family. And it's like, what is this council thinking? You know, where are we getting the money for this? Measure P didn't pass, so there's nothing coming there. I mean, I'm beside myself. And it's not about the individual. You know, I've never met Mr. Hamner. I would like to have the opportunity to meet Mr. Hamner. I think he's well qualified. I think his resume speaks for itself. You know, I have no doubt. But you know what? If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Somewhere along the line, somebody's got to say enough's enough and we need to pull back. Either that or the city's going to end up in bankruptcy. And if we end up in bankruptcy, you know, we can do what San Bernardino does. And maybe that's the best thing for the city, and let the county supervisors run this city. Maybe it's really the best thing. Because obviously the city councils can't do it, and neither can the city managers, because they're running the city into the ground, and this is a classic example of how it's being done. And from that, I have nothing more to say.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to respond to some comments that were made there. Most importantly, where we're going to get the money. We're going to get the money from a well-run department that doesn't have to continually do expensive IAs, payment for lawsuits, legal fees to defend the city, and inefficient operations. That's where the money's going to come from, because you need a chief that can run the department in a professional way that has experience. The long list of benefits and costs that Councilmember Peterson described, 95% of those are established by a council-approved resolution. that was adopted in January 2018 by unanimous vote. It was a 4-0 vote. Mayor Welch was not present. That includes the sick leave, the executive leave, the vacation leave, auto reimbursement, the $20,000 cafeteria plan, life insurance, the utility allowance, education pay. No matter who is offered the chief position, those are the benefits that have been approved by the council. They're in the employment agreement. So what isn't included in the resolution that's in the contract? The additional $14,000 of compensation, the 80-hour sick leave bank, the 80-hour vacation leave bank, and reimbursement for costs related to housing search and relocation. And that's reimbursement. That's not a payment of $18,000. The CPI above the 1%, if the CPI is above 1%. Those are the items that are the difference between this employment agreement and what's already been established by council resolution.
Thank you.
John Hagan, City of Manning. First of all, I want to thank Don for doing all my research, because I don't have the numbers down like you did, but just looking at the contract, it was way out of balance. It is way out of balance. I mean, you have qualified individuals that are local that you wouldn't have to pay the moving expense. They're satisfied with the 160 starting pay because that's what they interviewed for. And you have all this, you have 80 hours of sick and 80 hours of vacation accumulated on day one, plus he gets the 96 hours accumulated during the year. Says there's no way you can use that much time up. You would never be at work. So he's going to cash it in. So it's just, because you guys voted item 10 in, this is what you're going to deal with any position you get, because it's up to Doug to figure, I can give away the farm if I want to. If I want this guy here, I'm going to get him here and I'll give him the farm. Because in the last 8 months, he got this guy a $12,000 raise in Bainbridge, which based his offer $12,000 higher than it would have been if he would when he made the offer to him to come down here, because now he's got to at least match or do better than what he's getting in order to entice him to come down here. So Doug's his best friend. I mean, he's getting him money hand over fist. He'll be living high on the hog coming down here. Says it's unbelievable that you would give up that power, number one, and number two, to just carte blanche give away the farm. There's no way that you can pay all this money to this guy when the police department, the reason you're getting all these IAs and stuff is because the police department's running short and you're working the hell out of all these officers. And why don't you put that money into putting more officers to here, getting more officers here? You know, but you're just giving it away on one guy to sit on his ass in the thing and run the department. He ain't going to be out patrolling. You're not going to get, that's no public safety benefit. He's not going to be patrolling and doing the work that the police officers are doing, that you need to put people on the street, not behind desks. So now, I agree we need a police chief, but I don't think we need somebody that walks on water like this guy. I mean, I can't believe it. I don't know how he can demand that kind of a pay when you got all these other agencies and surrounding agencies and surrounding qualified personnel applying for the job here. And because Doug is more comfortable with this guy, and I don't have nothing against Hamner because I don't know him. He might be a fantastic cop's cop, but like Don says, if you can't afford to pay him, how long do you think he's going to stay? And then when you can't pay him and you go bankrupt, he's out the door and you got to pay all his accumulated vacation, everything else to get him out of here. It's ridiculous. I don't know what you're thinking.
Jerry Westler, City of Manning. By the way, your former speaker, John Hagee, he's a former retired senior sergeant from San Bernardino, so I think he knows a little bit what he's talking about. Mr. City Manager, you had mentioned the 80 hours, and I figured that out. Comes to $24,641 on top of the $14,000, so now we're at about $40,000 more. And here's my major concern. This city council said if Measure P is not passed, we are going to have to cut back fire and the police department. Measure P didn't pass. And here we are spending another $40,000 that we don't have. Now, since I've been in this city, it seems like we are just hell-bent, heading to bankruptcy, and funding people from outside our city who come here, don't know our community, and agreed. I don't know Mr. Henry. He might be a great guy. He might have a red cape and a blue suit. I don't know. But we're not using any logic here. You guys aren't thinking this through. You've made your decision, and you're going to go for it. You're not going to think. You're not going to study like Mr. Peterson did here. You're just going to go and say, it's okay. Everything is okay. While the citizens in this city suffer. I have been involved in law enforcement for 24 years. I have a California post. I've been a police chaplain for 24 years. I've seen every end. I've counseled chiefs to regular patrol officers. And this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous for our community. And Mr. Peterson, thank you for pointing out the difference between the quality of life and cost of living in Bainbridge and Banning. I sure hope he can relate to the folks here. And I sure hope that he doesn't have a better than now attitude, that I'm coming here being your savior for the money that we're shelling out. And it is a sin. It is a sin for us to give away money we don't have. It's a sin to keep spending this city into bankruptcy. And that's where we're heading. Be sure of it. Be sure of it. And I just hope that everybody here, I wish you a godly blessing. May you reap what you've sown. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name's Don Smith. It'll take me a while to get to this issue, but the base is important. Doug is new. I don't know him very well. I'm still getting a feel for him. You're probably doing the same. I do know that for years, this council, I know some of you knew, this council's goal has been to improve outreach to the community. And of late, you're actually doing an excellent job of achieving that goal. I love the weekly report, the new media guy, who someday I'm going to remember his name, the improvements that he has made in getting information out to the public. He was worth every penny you paid. He's doing a great job. And so thus far, I'm impressed. I have no reason to believe that when he knew somebody well enough to say, this guy is good, therefore he's the one I'm going to pick, I have no problem with that. That's probably a smart move. I'm going to agree but disagree with you, Don. I think a person's qualifications and education and the person himself is always considered when you decide how much to pay somebody. I mean, I certainly do it when I hire somebody. So I think you are allowed to discuss those things when doing this. My caution is, as one of the few people I think who campaigned for Measure P, that unfortunately narrowly lost, is that we do have a $2 million structural deficit at least. And I haven't heard from you guys yet how you're planning to deal with that, so that causes me worry when we're now increasing the cost of certain things when I don't know how you're going to, what you may be thinking of cutting, and this won't be one of them once you approve the contract. Obviously, you guys set a policy that all of the other department heads are getting these same benefits. So it does cause me some concern that you're straying from that. Because as soon as you stray from that on this one, the next one's going to want it, and all the existing ones are going to want it. So I don't know how your negotiations are. I don't know what negotiations are possible. But going back to the 1%, in my opinion, would be smart. Whether or not you really need to give him that many bankable hours up front to get him to come here, I wasn't part of the negotiations. But right now, that's what your guys' job is. And you don't want to now have all your other department heads feel cheated, and now they want these things too. So I believe some of these things, for numerous reasons, should probably be cut back, like to the 1% for that reason. I've heard negative comments somewhat about how many chiefs of police we've had and whether any of them have been competent. I've liked most of our chiefs of police. Some of them, when you hired them, I was surprised that they got hired, and then they personally amazed me of how good they were. Most of our police officers work their asses off for this city. We have wonderful employees, but ultimately the success of any organization goes both ways. A leader has to lead in order to convince the ground to come up. So hiring a competent person, very important, but you got to keep in matter, we have a $2 million budget, and do you want to be offering this guy something that now all your other department heads are going to be asking for? Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Ellen Carr. I'm worried about banning. You know, Measure P didn't pass it. I have to say I voted against it. So the city doesn't have anyone's pockets to pick now. So whose pockets are they going to pick? Are we looking at people being laid off? City Hall being closed on Friday? You know, those are all possibilities. We need to live within our means. We're not doing that, and it's not right. Most of us are on fixed incomes. You know, Don said the median money you make in banning is $40,000. Well, let me tell you, I don't make anywhere near that much money. Yet I make myself save money every month. I make myself do that because I know times are always not going to be good, and I need something to fall back on. What do we have to fall back on? We don't have a pocket to pick anymore. And I'm not saying that the new police chief, I don't know him, and I think our police should be paid well. Personally, I feel the rank and file need to be paid better than the rest. They're the ones who every day go out there and put their lives on the line for us. So, you know, if you're going to be giving the new police chief lots more, then you need to do the same for the rank and file. I know they did get a raise, but you didn't do the dispatchers. They need a raise. If it wasn't for the dispatchers, our officers would be sitting in their cars all day like, okay, where do we go now? So we need to do more for the rank and file. We need to do more to save. I mean, I would really hate to see Banning go bankrupt. I would hate to see people getting laid off. I mean, look at the mess now with the slowdown. How many hundreds of thousands of people are not getting a paycheck? Well, you know, I'm not going to say hundreds, we don't have hundreds of thousands of people in Banning, but, you know, 10, 20, 30 people get laid off in the city. What happens to them? We've got to think. We've got to think. We can't put all our eggs in one basket. Thank you.
Anyone else? You know, this is a very interesting adventure we have here, and that's what it is, adventure. Because if you look back over the last 6 to 7 years, we have had concerns about our public safety. No disrespect to anyone who is in that department who has sat in the chair, the chief's chair over there, trying to make things work. But as long as I've been involved in the city, which right now is almost 15 years, being involved with the city of Banning government, I've seen us have turmoil. I've seen us have financial downturns. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, you're talking about laying people off. All of you remember that we laid off 46 employees, and we have yet to hire that level back in the last few years. Why? Because we didn't have the money to make things work. The one thing that I think, and I'd like to remind people of, that I think we forget, is that part of our job is to sell our city. And we've got a product here that no other community really can match, and we're not doing a very good job of it thus far. And the reason why is that we allow parts of the city that need to be truly functional to get people excited about coming to Banning, we allow them to deteriorate. And public safety is one of them. It happens so many times in so many communities. Ask San Bernardino. You were talking about people with a lot of experience in San Bernardino. That community started having big problems over there because part of the government started to fail. Then they just accelerated. Ask Hemet. They've been through the same story. We're going to have a person coming here that we hope, and I've got confidence that it will happen, that we'll get the service that the people in Banning truly deserve as far as public safety is concerned. Right now, the group I'm the most concerned about are the officers that are out here on the street. They're working too many hours to be able to do the job at the level that they want to perform. And we are placing them in harm's way. And I'm tired of seeing that. And this move, I'm truly convinced that this move is going to help us turn that around. Now, are we spending some bucks? Yes. But if you were listening to the city manager, a lot of that can and will be offset by bringing the city manager at a top pay level, bringing the the chief of police aboard that knows how to manage, not implement. We've got some of the best implementing police on our people on our staff that we could ask for. But it's the planning area that needs to grow, and we've fallen short on that. I take my hat off to the people that have tried to conduct it. They've really tried hard. But we need experience in here and someone that's dedicated. As far as talking economics, I've had the opportunity to live in 7 different states in the United States, and I've lived in economic situations where people are making an awful lot of money, and I grew up in a town where a nickel was about all you had to spend. When we start hanging our hat on our dollars versus what our people are receiving and cutting back on what our people receive, we're going to see negative results. Give you a good example. Reverend Westholder was up here talking. He's been up here several times expressing a real concern about homeless people, especially around his church area. You know, it's increased significantly in our town over the past 2 or 3 years. We do not have the force that we need out there to help control this. And this is what we're hoping that it can happen. Are we going to spend some dollars? Yes. Absolutely.
The reason I want to say something, because I was born and raised here. A lot of you weren't from here. When you say poverty, you mostly saying about the east side, because Bannon has a little money as far as when it comes to family. I see this, you know, people are talking negative, Bannon is going to go bankrupt. I don't see that. I see a future in Bannon. It's a future here in Bannon. I was born and raised here, 4 generations, so I know it's a future here. I understand. I had a little problem too with the money, but I feel in my heart that this will turn around. And who's to say, you can't say that the police chief is going to just sit behind the desk. I don't think that's going to happen, because the things I have heard and kind of looked up, he's a people person out there in the streets. So you just can't say, oh, he's just going to sit behind the desk. You don't know that. And I really feel in my heart that Bannon is going to move forward, because that's what I'm looking for, Bannon to move forward. I was born and raised here. I want it to grow. It's little, but it's growth here, and I see that. So, you know, I understand your point as far as, the money, but get somebody here that, like he said, money is going to be pulled somewhere. We're not going to cut everybody. You know what I'm saying? You just have to have faith. If you're a pastor, a preacher, a Christian, you have faith. And I have faith in my town, because I was born and raised here.
Thank you. Call for a vote, please. All right, I'm sorry, I call for a motion.
I make a motion
Thank
to
you. Call for a vote.